Cybercrime has exploded in recent years, and so has the spending on countermeasures. 2017 saw a heightened consciousness about cybersecurity around the globe. From spy tools stolen from US intelligence agencies leading to the spread of alleged state-sponsored ransomware, to the high-profile hacking campaigns in both the French and American elections.
It seems like a week doesn't go by without a major vulnerability or information security breach.
A guy called Willis Ware, way back in '67, stated that if you connect more than two computers together, they will be vulnerable. And here we are in 2017 and things are still vulnerable.
Networks are growing, wireless is huge, there's more systems, more clinical applications, there's a huge growth in IoT. If you don't have cybersecurity in place, you're going to be opening yourself up to attackers.
In recent years, cybercriminals have crippled operations, caused severe financial loss, and of course severely damaged reputations across the globe.
There's been an increase in all sorts of attacks. In the last 12 months, we've had over 1,000 denial of service attacks on the Janet network.
The Office of National Statistics reported that 47.4% of all crime is cyber-related. That's a significant increase, really.
So, what does this mean for the education and research sector in the UK? How do those behind the scenes hope to continue to protect their networks? And how do we change people's outlook to help them help themselves? For decades, people have misused computers. Manipulating technology and seeing how it can be subverted away from its intended use was central to the development of hacking. In the 1970s, the Freaker movement was born. It was a subculture that was known for hijacking telecommunications systems around the world, and at one point it even included Apple co-founders Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. But the danger of cybercrime has never been more visible than it is today. We've seen the high-profile hacking of major corporations, as well as the explosive leaks of government intelligence and surveillance, made famous by the likes of Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden and Julian Assange.
The last few years, I think, as society, we've become more dependent on technology. Nowadays, everything's connected, whether it's your mobile phone, your TV, white goods at home can be connected, your cars, and everything is now connected to everything else. This is why cybersecurity is a big issue. You've always been a little bit reactive. The idea is now to become proactive, and part of that is being aware of what's out there and what the risks are currently.
The fact we are so connected and can do so much online means we are all vulnerable to cyber attack.
With so many malware kits that are now available on the web, attackers can easily use these toolkits to compromise and attack organisations, whether or not it's for malicious reasons or to see what they can actually get away with. Unfortunately for these organisations, a lot of these reasons why they're being breached is because they have unpatched, vulnerable platforms, or users are being lured into sharing confidential information via phishing emails.
But the stereotype of the hoodie-clad lone wolf hacker sitting in a darkened room is far from the full picture.
There are four main motivations for cyber attack. One is just getting your name out there. One is about access to intellectual property. The next one is around causing an effect. And then the last one's the obvious one, which is money. And the cyber criminals who are after money, they'll do whatever they can to whoever they can in order to generate a return on their investment. And all you've got to do is make their return on investment go down a little bit and they'll go somewhere else. In the real world, most people are likely to be hurt by commodity crime, so somebody breaking into your car or your house or you're being mugged. Very unlikely to get hurt by terrorism. It's the same online. You're much more likely to be harmed at a low level by commodity crime than by a nation-state attack against something. And I think it's really important to keep that into perspective.
There are so many different threats, it can be difficult to know where to focus. And there are just as many tools to mitigate all the threats that it's challenging to know what's the right mix for your security.
Cybercrime has become more sophisticated in its attack, it's more social. They're starting to target the humans rather than the actual systems. But still the most vulnerable part is the human.
The biggest threats to most of us are the ransomware and phishing. I think the WannaCry was a wake-up call for a lot of people in terms of keeping patches up to date. We do have processes in place to make sure that when patches come out, we update systems within a week or two.
How often do you really look at the address on emails you receive? And are you sure that your passwords are actually strong enough?
Whale phishing at the moment is quite prevalent around education in terms of where they're targeting certain individuals as opposed to just generally trying everybody. The more senior people are, the more of a target they are because of their access and also because of their influence within the organisation. Therefore, if you receive an email from the chief exec asking you to do something, you're much more inclined to do it without question.
It's reassuring to know that most attacks will fail, but occasionally they do hit hard, and when they do, the cost can be staggering. The direct financial implications of the WannaCry ransomware attack on the NHS have been suggested to be in excess of £1 million, and the outage on the NHS systems affected over 3,000 patients. And it could have all been avoided if the systems had been patched in time.
The threats that universities and colleges especially face are malware and denial of service attacks. Malware especially because students are obviously bringing in their own devices, whether it's own laptops or using their own mobile phones. If they're connecting to the local networks, there's an easy way of transmitting viruses and malware onto the network. Our system alerts us when a site is under attack because a certain threshold is reached. We check to see that it's actually a real attack and not a false positive. With lots of research organisations sending large amounts of data around, we need to be careful that we're not preventing legitimate traffic. What we try and do is to mitigate the effect on an institution. It's very hard to actually stop attacks. What we can do is prevent the bad traffic reaching the institution so they can still carry on with their life.
In today's IT environment, organisations know that risk assessment is the vital first step to risk reduction.
The number of servers that we have here at the university, to go through and do a risk assessment on every single server and find out the patching levels and then take them offline and patch them, it was beyond our resources. We just would still be there now. So we had to automate it and make it fast and quick. In a nutshell, it just looks and scans at all the servers and all the equipment that you want it to and takes a snapshot of the vulnerabilities that are showing on those devices.
The cyber criminals use people's just gullibility, it's human manipulation. It's important to have the training in place. It is everybody that uses a computer in their organisation, staff and students, because they can equally do as much damage.
Humans have evolved to recognise threats in the physical world, but we haven't adapted to see threats in the online world in the same way. People often don't think that they will be a victim of cybercrime until it happens. This can mean that we aren't as aware of threats online, and so we can actually be more susceptible. Because cybercriminals know this, they have found that often attacking the human is the quickest, cheapest, and most effective way to compromise the system of an organisation.
Simulated phishing and associated awareness enables organisations of any size to assess their risk to phishing attacks. Once they know what their risk is, they can then provide the relevant tools, awareness training and solutions to reduce their overall exposure to these type of attacks.
I was very aware that I didn't really understand how susceptible our staff were to phishing. You all tend to think that most people will be alert to suspect emails, but you heard a lot about the fact that this was a problem within organisations, so I developed a phishing email which we then sent to all staff. I was very surprised at the number of staff that clicked on the link and gave away their network credentials. I was horrified, in fact, really, to think that almost 30% of our staff fell for the phishing email. It makes people more aware of the whole cybersecurity sphere, because it's not just phishing, it's all the other aspects we have to do and look at.
In every other part of public policy, we talk about harm. In cybersecurity, we talk about attacks. Change that narrative. We're talking about the reduction of harm that we're achieving rather than the number of weird emails people get.
It's not just external malicious threats that we need to be aware of. Non-malicious threats could be a greater risk to security. Human error is a big factor, people making mistakes because they are unsure how to respond to an incident or simply don't know what they should be looking out for. And as technology changes, the threat of cybercrime mutates to create even more challenges for those cybersecurity specialists that we rely on to keep us safe and secure.
The more we see and the more we combat, the more we're aware of. And I think this is one of the things that's happening in the cyber communities. We're becoming more and more aware and we know what to look for.
Jisc is really important to us in terms of how we deliver security for academic and research sector. We're fully aware that there needs to be some separation between government and academia, and Jisc is there to help us be that intermediary and to provide the services on behalf of the UK to the academic and research sector. It's much, much easier for us to work with a single organisation who can then scale protection out across the entire sector.
As we've seen, cybersecurity requires constant vigilance and the expertise of Jisc and its partners around the clock every day. By raising awareness and keeping the subject alive through regular debates with our peers, we can all play our part in mitigating the impact of cybercrime.